Hey Ethan, I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to make it to class this evening.
No worries, Kase, but why can't you join us? Are you still there?
Um,
Hello? Can you hear me? Well, that was pretty awkward, wasn't it? What you just witnessed is a huge challenge for most English learners, and that is telling the very subtle difference when Americans say can and can't. Now, although these words look pretty similar, you may have noticed that depending on how they are used in a sentence, their pronunciation can change quite a bit. So what you see and what you hear are actually quite different. So as our goal here at Real Life English is to help you to confidently understand anyone, we will first be recapping the difference in the pronunciation between these two words before testing your listening skills so that you never confuse can and can't again. Are you ready? Let's go. So the weak form of can is usually pronounced with a schwa sound. This is the sound, which is the most common sound in English. So instead of saying a strong can, we'll usually reduce it to kun. Let me give you some examples. I can ride a bike. He can go for a walk later. Now we do this when can is not the main verb in the sentence. It's an auxiliary verb, and auxiliary verbs in their nature are usually reduced. So it can even link on to other words in the sentence. For example, if I say I can, I'll reduce it and connect it. I can. It almost sounds just like one word, right? I can ride a bike. Why don't you give it a try? Now the strong form of can, which you are probably more familiar with from your English classes, is pronounced with a short A sound, just like the word and. So we have two very similar sounds there, can and. So we pronounce that short A sound with the mouth relaxed and just slightly open. So if you're comfortable doing that, then why don't you try saying it with me? Can. Awesome. Now you might be asking yourself, when do we use the reduced version and when do we use the fully pronounced version of can? So when should I say kun? When should I say it fully as can? So you would use this fully pronounced can when you want to give emphasis, for example. So if I'm wanting to reassure you, you can win the game, or you can pass the test. We'll also use it for contrast situations. So for example, he can't come to the party, but she can. Finally, if you see this word coming at the end of a sentence, you would also pronounce it fully. So for example, I don't know if I can. By the way, if you could understand the difference when natives say can and can't without any difficulty, you'd probably feel a lot more confident, right? Well, every week we make English lessons to help learners just like you to go from feeling like a lost and insecure English learner to being a confident and natural English speaker. Does that sound like something that you want to do? Then be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell down below and join our community of over 300,000 learners, and you'll never miss a single new lesson. Now to practice your pronunciation of can't, you can do the exact same exercise as before. Take the word canter, which is kind of a way that's between walking and running like a horse might do, and just drop that final syllable. So it's can't. And something to keep in mind with can't, not like can, it never reduces. You don't have that schwa sound there. So make sure that you're always saying that with a strong sound, can't. But what happens here that does seem to trip up most of my students is that they don't hear that final T sound. Now, this is exactly right. Americans tend to take that T and make it into a glottal T. What does this mean? This means that instead of releasing the full sound, we cut it off in the back of our throats. And if this sound does not exist in your native language, then you might not even hear it. So it just sounds the same as saying a full can, right? So let's look at a couple examples. I can understand what he's saying. The team can't progress into the next round. Now, usually we only pronounce that T sound at the end of can't if it's at the end of a sentence or we want to clarify or add more emphasis. So let's look at some examples. If some person asked, "Can I borrow your car?" then I could respond, I've told you 10 times, no, you can't. Or similar to the example that we saw before, a place where I've gotten in trouble with my students is when they say something in English and I couldn't understand what they said. And so I said, sorry, I can't understand. But what happens here is because we have that glottal T and then it's followed by a vowel, they connect. So they think that I said, I can understand when I said I can't understand. You can see how this can cause some confusion for sure in my classes, right? And so to avoid this problem altogether, I started using I didn't catch that instead of I can't understand you in all English lessons. Anyways, having good listening skills is absolutely essential if you want to feel confident communicating in any language. And a big problem that I've heard from English learners from all around the world is that they just don't have enough good opportunities to practice speaking English with other people. And that's why we decided to go and solve this problem for you. Our Real Life app is the only place where anytime, anywhere, you can simply press a button and be instantly connected to another English speaker in another part of the world for a fun and dynamic English conversation. That's right, you can have a fascinating conversation about your life, about that other person's culture, about your shared hobbies, or even just about the weather if you want. And we know for a lot of you, you know that having a teacher can be a life-changing experience, but maybe you just simply can't afford it. And that's exactly why we've made the Real Life app a free resource that you can use to practice your speaking every day. Does that sound pretty good? Then why don't you download it now by clicking up here or down in the description below. Or you can simply search for Real Life English in the Apple app or Google Play Store. All right, so now that you've warmed up, it's time to test your English listening skills. So this test has two parts. In the first part, you will see my face, so you'll be able to see me saying 10 different example sentences. For each one, you need to determine whether I said can or can't in the example. In the second part, you're not going to see my face. So this is really great to challenge your listening skills, just like you would need to do, for example, if you have a phone call or maybe a Zoom meeting without any video. All right, are you ready? Then let's jump into the test. So the first example, I can cook. I can cook. He can ride a horse. He can ride a horse. They can't join us this evening. They can't join us this evening. She might be able to do it, but I can't. She might be able to do it, but I can't. You can pass the exam. You can pass the exam. You can't win every game. You can't win every game. I can understand what you're saying. I can understand what you're saying. He can't eat dairy products, right? He can't eat dairy products, right? She can't be serious. She can't be serious. They can stay over at my house. They can stay over at my house. Excellent. How did you do? All right, are you ready to step the challenge up a notch? So now you're not going to see my face, you're just going to have to really trust your ears. She can eat the entire cake by herself. She can eat the entire cake by herself. They can understand everything the teacher says. They can understand everything the teacher says. We can't travel to France this summer. We can't travel to France this summer. I can't imagine what life would be like on Mars. I can't imagine what life would be like on Mars. Can he fix it? Can he fix it? If you follow these steps, you can't fail. If you follow these steps, you can't fail. He can come to the party tonight. He can come to the party tonight. I can't decide what to wear. I can't decide what to wear. Swimming is something she can do. Swimming is something she can do. He can't paint very well. He can't paint very well. Ah, yeah, great job. How do you feel after that? Don't worry too much if that was a big challenge for you. You can watch the lesson over and over as many times as you want until you can effortlessly understand the difference between can and can't. And if you need a little bit more help, then be sure that you don't miss this lesson that we did that really focuses in on the pronunciation differences between can and can't. You can find that by clicking up here or down in the description below. And let's recap what we learned today about the differences between can and can't. So can is often pronounced in the weak form with a schwa sound, kun. And when we have another word before it, then it often links, like I can. The strong form of can is pronounced with a short a sound, just like in man. There are 3 types of cases where you'll see can used in the strong form, and that's for emphasis, contrast, or if it's at the end of a sentence. Can't doesn't have a weak form as it is always stressed, so be sure to always pronounce it with a strong a, can't. However, we usually don't pronounce that T at the end of can't either. We use a glottal T, can. Finally, you'll probably only hear that T sound in can't fully pronounced if it comes at the end of a sentence and the person wants to add a bit more emphasis. All right, I hope that you really enjoyed learning with today's lesson. Why don't you send it over to a friend and challenge them to see if they score as good as you did? And if you want to continue your English learning journey with us, then be sure to subscribe, and why don't you check out this lesson next. Hey there. So as you just saw, a lot of learners have trouble saying the difference between can and can't, especially in American English. So let's see how your listening is now. When I say, I can't hear you, what do you hear?